This podcast is a production of Widener Law Commonwealth in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. For more information, visit commonwealthlaw.widener.edu/podcast.
Hello and welcome to Widener Law Commonwealth's podcast. I'm your host, Tara Mead, and today I'm joined by Randi Teplitz, our Assistant Dean of Students, and Rebecca Waldemar, Adjunct Professor and Supervising Attorney for our Central Pennsylvania Law Clinic. Thank you both very much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to come on this podcast with me. So with the new year, there's a lot of people that will do resolutions. They may think it's a good time to take a look at their daily routines. And, that can mean anything from, switching up your exercise routine, eating a little healthier, or, taking some steps to, improve your mental health. And in the past few years, and definitely during the height of the pandemic, there's been a renewed focus where people are looking at just mental health and overall wellness. And that also includes, our law school students. So, Professor Waldemar, I know you've taught classes on mindfulness and notably how mindfulness can help law students develop essential skills that they need to succeed. So, to start things off in our conversation today, exactly what is mindfulness? How would you define it? And what are some of its basic components?
Yeah, mindfulness does have a lot of some various definitions, and people speak about it in different ways. And one of the problems with mindfulness that can get confusing is that it's become so popularized. You can see blog articles that say, 10 steps to being more mindful, and it's a lot of different information, and some of it is misinformation. So when we're really talking about mindfulness in a way that can, using it in a way that can enhance the quality of our lives, there's a couple different definitions I can give you. So one definition is by Thich Nhat Hanh, who is considered the father of mindfulness, really, especially in the West, is being aware and awake to the present moment. And another definition by a researcher and practitioner, Jon Kabat-Zinn, is the practice of bringing non-judgmental attention to the present moment. And maybe even a more simple definition by another professor and researcher, Ellen Langer, is the simple act of actively noticing. And so what you'll see in all of these definitions is that what you're really doing is being in the present moment. And we're being mindful when we're withdrawing our attention from what is really the ceaseless chatter in our minds. And withdrawing our attention from that, and we're bringing that attention to the present, to what's actually happening in front of us and what actually is happening in this moment. I don't know, I think that answers your question about the definition and what it means.
Yeah, I think it does, and I think you really hit on a pivotal point that it's about being aware of where you are right now, not letting other things, chatter in your mind, and you're just focusing on the present moment.
Right. So this being here in the present moment, we often don't pay attention to it because we're so busy, being concerned with, the anxieties of the future or the disappointments of the past. But this idea of being mindful and this being in the present moment, this is what allows us to be really fully engaged in our life. And not only that, it really is what allows us to experience life. So if you can think about something like, for instance, eating Haagen-Dazs ice cream is one of my favorite things to eat. And, it's not that good for me, so I try not to eat too much of it. But I will realize when I'm not being mindful, I have eaten a whole bowl, and I didn't even get to taste it. This is a disappointment. Right. This is a disappointment in life. It's now I have to eat another bowl and pay attention to it so I can actually enjoy the experience. And so often, we're not actually able to be engaged with our own lives or to be having the experience of being alive because our minds are elsewhere. And so being mindful is really bringing ourselves into that present moment.
And I know just in this recent, the fall semester, you did a class on mindfulness. And what prompted, let me back up a little bit, what prompted mindfulness to be introduced on campus, especially with you teaching this class?
Well, I can tell that from my perspective, but I think that Dean Teplitz might actually have a wider perspective or paid attention to more components of that.
Sure.
I know for me, I I don't know what it was. It was like something in me, and I hadn't been in my position. I've been working in the clinic, and I hadn't been in that position very long. And I've been practicing mindfulness and meditation for many, many years now, and have found it to improve my life greatly. And I really, for something in me just really wanted to share that, and I thought this would be a good place. And I did just a little preliminary research, and by preliminary research, I'm Googling. And I could see that law schools were starting to introduce this, and they were starting to introduce classes. And so I did some research on that. I spoke with other professors. I emailed and spoke with people in other law schools who had these mindfulness components and these mindfulness classes, and I proposed it. And I proposed it to the faculty and to the administration, and I was just really excited about and grateful about the positive reception that received.
That's awesome.
And yeah, so that's something that I've been, that's been my project, and that's been something that I've really been working, and I've been so supported in it, and I've been really grateful about that. But I know that our school has been doing other things too, related to mindfulness and related to wellness, and I think Dean Teplitz knows more about how that started.
So, as Professor Waldemar mentioned, a lot of law schools have started integrating mindfulness into their curriculums, and that's been a real major shift in law school education over the last few years, because law schools, in partnership with their local lawyer assistance programs and bar associations, we're noticing high levels of mental health issues amongst practitioners, substance abuse problems, high levels of burnout. And so in doing some self-reflection within the profession, law schools really determined that they needed to start instilling coping skills within their curriculum, because it's a soft skill that is going to serve them well when they get into practice, either by taking care of themselves or, as Professor Waldemar mentioned, it's important as far as decision-making is concerned, and clear decision-making, and non-judgmental, and being non-emotional in your decision-making. That's a key element to being a good legal practitioner. And so if we're educating our students on, what a contract is or how to draft a will, we also need to be picking up that component as to how do you really actively listen to your client who in that moment is in crisis. How do you refrain from judgment for somebody who perhaps has engaged in behaviors that are different from ones that you would have engaged in? These clients look to their attorneys for clear, thoughtful decision-making. And if the lawyer doesn't have the mindfulness or coping skills to be able to make those non-judgmental decisions, then it impacts their lawyering ability. And so, it really is a law school's obligation to give their students the ability to think clearly in the presence and be a good active listener. And so, in addition to Professor Waldemar's mindfulness class, we have looked at wellness more globally. Mm-hmm. And so we have done things like brought in puppies to pet during exams, or run workshops on 10 ways to train your brain, which includes, drinking green tea stimulates this part of your brain, mm-hmm. and learn about different ways nutritionally that we can feed our bodies and minds. Mm-hmm. We've done healthy cooking classes. We have we've had exercise programs where the students go and they do indoor cycling. Professor Waldemar, she did a walk, a meditative walk. Dean Morangello led students on a hike. We're very lucky that in our geographic region we have lots of great resources, outdoor resources, mm-hmm. that we can take advantage of. And so I look forward to continuing this programming as we move forward.
And what's been the response? I mean, this question is for both of you, but what's been the response so far, not just to the class, but those other related mindfulness and wellness components that have been introduced on campus?
As far as the programming is concerned, I think there is a desire for it. COVID has impacted some of that programming. And so I think we are in a rebuilding phase as we're all learning to live alongside COVID. But I think the students very much understand that they need to find healthy outlets for their stress and anxiety. Perhaps walking in the door, they don't realize that, but I think come mid-first semester, students are looking for healthy outlets. And so I anticipate that programming is going to continue to be robust and frankly, more regular than it has been in the past. It's something I really look forward to focusing on in the next few months.
Perfect. And so, just to reiterate, as of the show's recording, we are back to holding classes in person, and many of our staff are back on campus. So with us collectively being in that rebuilding phase that you referred to, any possibility that our campus might hold mindfulness and wellness events? I know there was a mindfulness wellness month, I believe.
I believe it was March, Professor Waldemar did some activities related to mindfulness.
I do some activities related to mindfulness in the clinic as well. So we did a March Wellness Month. It wasn't last semester. It was, I think, a couple of semesters ago. It's been a little bit difficult with COVID and hybrid classes and that sort of thing. But there is a wellness month that's kind of, there's an organization called the Institute for Wellbeing and Law, and they really promote this wellness month, which I think happens in April or May, actually. And so that is something that we're looking at and that we could, and I've been also looking at some ideas of ways we can institute that on our campus.
And Rebecca has done some really great activities at the clinic to integrate mindfulness and wellness into your daily routines with your students.
So going back actually a little bit to your question of the feedback and the reception, I do have the advantage of getting very specific feedback because I teach the class and because it's incorporated into the clinic. So in the clinic, our clinic director, Professor Scott, she has been really supportive as well. And so one of our staff meetings is actually on mindfulness. And then I hold a weekly meditation for the students as well, and they can come or they cannot come if they want. And last semester I had one student come, but the semesters before that I had more. I find that after the staff meeting with mindfulness, more students come. So that's always really good feedback. Last semester, mindfulness wasn't until way later in the semester, so I only got one person coming for the meditations. So we'll see how it goes this semester. I also get the feedback from the students from my class, because as a professor, they do evaluations and they write notes. And I have gotten really positive feedback. And both semesters that the mindfulness class has been taught, some students have said that it should be a required course, that it was meaningful and they got so much out of it.
Wow.
And so those are ways that we've been growing and expanding mindfulness on our campus.
That's really great, because I think giving not just law students, but even, if staff on our campus want to take part, it really gives them the tools that to sort of just help them navigate life and be able to just be present in the moment, but be present in such a way that they can focus and not have, the clutter, or like I've heard it called the crazy brain, when you're being pulled in so many different directions, just, in your day-to-day life, between, juggling, for example, for a law student, juggling school and maybe they have a family, or maybe they have another job that, in addition to law school, which is a job in and of itself too. So I think giving people those tools and helping them is such a huge gift,
It is definitely it's definitely what I'm hoping to accomplish. Like in proposing anything and following through anything with mindfulness on campus, my whole purpose is to, be able to give something to people or provide this space or this experience for people where they can have that emotional lift, calm down, let go of some of the anxiety that goes along, especially with classes and grades and all of those things and the stresses that students have. One of the things that I hope to be offering, especially now that we're back on campus, is maybe a regular set time during the semester. I haven't proposed this yet, so this is like new. So but it is one thing that I want to do.
Breaking news.
Yes, breaking news. I'm hoping to be able to have a time for the students to, and the staff, anybody who wants to come, a regular time where I can lead a meditation. And, I have some ideas about introducing people to a variety of type of meditations. Different things work for different people.
Yeah, because sometimes you see people will have meditation apps on their phone, but they may not understand the actual practice. So I think that would be really helpful, just to sort of guide people through it, give them the information and the background, and sort of be there to walk them through that process. So that's great. So yeah, when you're ready, sign me up.
Okay.
Well, before we close out this podcast, what are some of the resources that Professor Waldemar, that you might recommend for people to check out as it concerns mindfulness, if they want to know a little bit more?
Yeah, so the book that I would it's a short and easy to read book that I would really recommend for an introduction to mindfulness, along with just an understanding of how to do it, is The Miracle of Mindfulness by Thich Nhat Hanh. And he has been teaching and growing mindfulness for a very long time, and especially in the West. He is, actually, he died a few days ago. It was very sad. He was 95, and it's been quite, in the mindfulness community, it's been quite big news. He was 95. It wasn't, necessarily unexpected. But he's written many, many books. The Miracle of Mindfulness is a good one to start with. It is very gentle. It is so gentle, and it's beautiful. I would actually recommend also something called Insight Timer. It is a free meditation app, but it contains many quality guided meditations and other types of meditative music, and it is free, and it is quality, and it has become kind of one of the top meditation apps, actually. And then there's also, if you're interested in learning about what the benefits are and how it helps, and especially how it helps lawyers, you might want to look for books on neuroscience and neuroplasticity and mindfulness. I haven't read it yet, but I have a book on my reading list called Altered Traits, which is all about that. So I'm looking forward to reading that. There's also it's called the Mindfulness in Law Society, and it's free to students.
Nice.
And it is, there's a small charge for attorneys to join the organization, but they have really been working on spreading mindfulness and meditation throughout the legal field. And it's called Mindfulness in Law, the Mindfulness in Law Society, and students can join for free. And then my last recommendation for a resource is just get started. Sit your bum down and close your eyes and take some deep breaths. And just try it, because you can read all about the benefits, but until you experience it, it's not that meaningful.
Very well put. I agree. I actually personally got into meditation a couple of years ago, and it's amazing. I think about, okay, before I start, my mind's going everywhere. I'm thinking about my to-do list and this and that and whatever. And then when I do it and come out of it, I am like a totally different person.
Exactly.
It's amazing once you get into it. So I am hopeful and confident that our listeners who may not be into mindfulness or haven't heard that much about it are at least interested enough that they'll take a stab, sit down and relax and just take a few minutes and just begin that process and look at ways that are there some other components of wellness that you can even small changes that you can incorporate in your life that will help you, whether you're going to law school or not. It's they always say when you have these these pushes to what's your New Year's resolution? Well, maybe it's just taking those small steps to begin with, because those small steps can make such a huge impact. So I really thank you both so much for being here today, Professor Waldemar and Dean Teplitz. Personally, I've learned quite a bit just in our short conversation, and I'm pretty confident our listeners have as well. So, and speaking of our listeners, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. And until next time, stay safe and take care.
Widener University Commonwealth Law School is the Pennsylvania capital's only law school, with 3 specialized centers of legal scholarship through its Law and Government Institute, Environmental Law and Sustainability Center, and Business Advising Program. Widener Law Commonwealth offers an exceptional learning experience that is personal, practical, and professional. Visit commonwealthlaw.widener.edu for more information.